Hi lovely creative people, this is June from Oaken Witch Lane Designs, and this video is going to be about some crafty quick tips. A lot of times when I post my pieces on social media, I will get questions on how did I do this, how did I do that, and to write it down and make sure that I'm explaining properly, because if someone is asking me how I do something, I really would like to share, as people before me have shared, the steps to accomplish something, but I want them to understand. So I decided to do this video and more probably in the future, called Crafty Quick Tips. They're going to be very short and hope they will help you. On this video, I'm going to go over how I do icicles, whiskers, and boas. And at the end of the video, I will show you the project in which I used all three of these. So I'm going to turn my camera down and I'll be with you in a second. Okay, so the first item that we are going to make are icicles. Now, icicles, you're going to need a hot glue gun. Now, this one is what I refer to as my big guy, okay? This one is a smaller one, and it's the one that I usually use when I'm making icicles, but I wanted to make sure that you would be able to see what I'm doing. So this one has a fine tip, and it's very lovely to work with, especially if you're doing small icicles. This one's a little bit better to see with, so we're going to use this one today. Okay, so you put on your hot glue and you wait for it to get a little hot. I'm working on my glass mat like I showed before. That's because I have to scrape these off of the glass once they dry. I'm also going to need a scraper. Now, I got this one at Harbor Freight. It's just a regular razor blade and a handle, so it's safe. A little pair of scissors, just to cut off some of the webs. Hot glue makes an awful lot of webs, as we all know. And these things right here are silicone fingertips. Now, I know it's sort of like saying, duh, hot glue is hot. But you have to take some precautions when you use it. It is hot. So I know that they sell these little fingertips, and they also have little spatulas that you can buy online so that you don't touch the hot glue before it dries. Here we go, and that noise was my son walking out the door. Not for any particular reason, but he had to go outside. Okay, so you get your hot glue gun, put up the handle, the stand rather. This has been on for a while, so it is very hot. You put it down on your glass mat, and I'll try to do it sideways so you can see. Squeeze the trigger, see if the hot glue coming out, and then you get a little out and you pull down. And you sort of release the trigger as you're going down so that you're trying to get it to go thinner. Now, I always make more icicles than I would ever need, just because I like to pick and choose. So, ooh, there we go, we blobbed it, but you just want to go down, and then you're basically pulling what the blob you already put down. Now, that one isn't so great, but you know, you can practice. This takes practice. Not everyone is going to be great. Put a little down, keep the trigger, and then start easing off of it. Okay, now the webs you're just going to have to deal with, because that's just a part of hot glue. And once you keep doing this, you'll get the hang of it a little bit better. Okay, that one's a little better. Now, the secret to what I do is I wait for the hot glue to dry, to get hard, because right now these icicles really just look like blobs of glue. Now, I made these, and hopefully you can see these. I made these a little bit earlier before I started this video, and they look like icicles much more to me than these blobs on my glass mat. So you just have to sit there and wait for the hot glue to dry. It doesn't take very long, or you can just continue to make icicles clear across your glass mat. Once the hot glue sets up and it's a little bit drier, now what you do is you go back over what you did You're just trying to get a little bit of glue out, and that's why the thinner glue gun works so much better for this. And go over the top. Just a little bit more. And the drier or the harder the ones that you put down first, the better this technique is. So if you wait a little longer to let these dry, it'll be better for you. But by putting another layer, and if you wiggle your hands a little, and if you have too much, just keep going down. You can cut it off later. As a matter of fact, if you can see this one has, like, it's big here, then it goes really small and big here. So I'm just going to go back and put a little glue right there. The more ripply you can get these to be, the better off you are. You're just pressing a little bit on the trigger. You're not trying to get a lot of glue. You're just pressing a little bit on the trigger. And as you wait for these to really harden up, a little bit of patience always helps. Then you can go around, and while that's happening, you can play with all the webs that went all over the place. We're going to cut the webs off, but sometimes this is fun to do too. Not when you have a piece and you're trying to work on the piece and you got webs all over the place. But on the glass mat, it's not bad. Now, I don't use hot glue a lot. Like I said in my first video, I basically use for my pieces either a crazy glue or fabric tack, and sometimes a thick PVA glue, which is basically just white glue. Those are the kinds of glues I normally use, but I saw a technique on how to use hot glue to make masks. And I thought that was very interesting on YouTube. I saw it. And then the idea came when I was making something that needed some icicles, that why can't I use that to make icicles? And that's how this all came about. Also, if you're selling your projects and you have to ship them, flexible icicles are so much better because they won't break. And you have enough problems while you're trying to package a piece perfectly that you don't want the icicles to break if they were glass. These icicles are very flexible and they will not break. They will rip, but we're not going to be treating them that badly. You could also cut them very easily with a scissor. That's what we're going to use to trim them off. Now, I might want to put, these didn't come out as ripply with as much ripples, so I might want to go and put another little coat on. And I'm not trying to put a lot of glue on. I'm trying to get the least amount of glue out and pull it down. The least amount out that I can. Let's get that center point and pull it down. And the longer, seriously, the longer you wait for the initial glue that you put down to harden, because when you're putting down more glue, you're sort of melting, again with the heat, you're melting hot glue. Another thing is that if you're making decorations for the winter holiday, hot glue, I don't suggest using hot glue to put heavy pieces together, because if you store any kind of ornaments or decorations up in the attic and the attic gets very hot, that will melt the glue. So for me, that's why ouch, see, hot glue is hot. That's why I prefer using other glues, because I know that once I use any of the ones that I mentioned before, the glue will not be affected by the heat. Okay, so now we're going to hope that these dry. And you take your scraper. And I'm holding the other edge of my glass over here. Okay, just holding it down. And I scrape. This is the easiest way to get them up that I know of. And there you have an icicle. Very shiny, very flexible, so that when you pack it, you don't have to worry if this was glass, you'd have to worry if it would break. and it's really hard to pull them off without a scraper. That's why I have a scraper. I usually use my rigid clay blade, and that's probably why I got it dull. But I recently got these, and these work so much better. Very sparkly, very icicle looking. And now for any of those little webs, and I don't know if you can see them, you just cut them off. Just cut them off like that, and pull them off, and you're fine. And you can glue these now using regular glue. I don't use hot glue. Regular glue to whatever you are making. And I would think that if you're a card maker and you're making three-dimensional designs, these would be very pretty over any winter scenes that you're making. Now, if you wanted to add a little glitter to them, which I really don't like using a lot of glitter because it just gets all over the place, you can also add some glitter by putting on some clear glue and sprinkling the glitter on, and that will make them glittery. Okay, so that was Crafty quick tip number 1. Now we're going to talk about boas. All right, so when you're dressing an item, and whether it be a Santa or a lady that has a boa, when you're doing small scale, you can use some pipe cleaners. But to make it look, and this is a pipe cleaner. Now, I love pipe cleaners. I'm not going to be saying anything bad about pipe cleaners. I really enjoy using pipe cleaners for different things. But if you want it to be just a little bit more special and a little bit extra, you go out and you buy a feather boa. Now these come, I think, in 16 inches, maybe longer. I'm not really sure how long they come in, but you can buy them at the craft stores. And what you do is, now, this you have to do outside. For your own sanity, please go outside and do this. That's why you see that I've already clipped some of it before I even came to start to do this video. But let me show you. Well, I'm just going to tell you, rather. I'm not going to show you because I would like to keep my sanity. You go outside and you start gently cutting off the tips, of the feather boa. And you keep cutting slowly, slowly, until you get to a size that you think would look good in your project. Now, this is even a little too big, but I just wanted to show it to you so you can see. It's when you cut feather boas down, they get very, like here they're very airy, but here they're very thick, so they look like fur on items. Again, do this outside. These feathers they're worse than glitter. They get all over the place, and it's impossible to pick them up because when you're trying to sweep them, unless you use a vacuum cleaner, but if you're trying to sweep them, they start flying away. So next to glitter, or maybe even worse than glitter, feather boas are the worst as far as trying to clean up afterwards, so please do it outside. Keep your sanity. Now, the last tip I have for you is how to make whiskers, and I've been asked this before. Now, some people, not most, but some people use horsehair to do their whiskers, and that's fine if they had the right color. Now, horsehair, to my knowledge, comes in black, brown, and a tan color, but I like using white whiskers. So all I do is I take some thread. I take some of that PVA glue that I mentioned before, put it right on my fingers, okay? Take my thread and just roll the thread in the glue. Go up and down on the thread for however long you think you're going to need. Again, this is so easy. Make a little bit more, and thread is readily available. Then all I do is I take the thread and I hang it from the corner. I can't show you that, but I put it on the corner of my desk, and the thread just sort of hangs down and it dries. Sorry, I was off camera. Once it dries, it becomes stiff, and I use a long doll's needle and I put it through my figurines because I think, well, you don't know, but I do needle felting figurines. So those are my crafty quick tips for the day. You have icicles, boas, and when the glue dries, some whiskers. And I'll be right back and show you how these three things all went into one piece. I hope you enjoyed those crafty quick tips. I'm going to be able to use them in your projects in the future. This is Katrina. She is my needle felted ice skating mouse. And as you can see, I have used icicles, Featherboa, and whiskers. So that's how those three crafty quick tips go together. I love her so much, I'm not even sure I'm going to put her up for sale, but if I do, it'll be posted on my Oaken Witch Lane Facebook page to let you know that it is now in my Etsy shop. So until I see you again, have fun creating beauty.